And things become more divisive as we do that. More than 30 Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts have been kicked out of their sponsoring church because church leaders in Goose Creek say they're concerned about what could result from the recently enacted Boy Scouts of America policy that allows gay scouts. Peace Presbyterian, which is up in the Crowfield subdivision area in Goose Creek, ends its charter after 10 years. It was set to expire February 28th. They're not going to renew it. Church leaders and staff made the decision not because of the policy change itself, but out of fear that the National Boy Scouts of America won't stop there, according to the church pastor. Terry Bowden, who spoke on this to the Post and Courier, former church member, started that troop. He said he discussed the issue for a few years with the current church member who oversees it. Bowden said the church might turn, as many others have, to Trail Life USA, a newly established Christian Values Adventure program. That's just sort of like the AARP and AMAC situation, where you've got these traditional organizations in our culture, in our community, that you and I have followed for a long time, depending on what's part would be part of our lives. Obviously, I'm not a member of AARP and won't be, hopefully, for many years, but maybe never if they continue their politics. But the politics within these organizations are changing. Their beliefs are changing.
Or they're being forced to change,
given
it into pressure.
That's
what happened. That's what happened with the BSA.
Yeah, they're giving into pressure. I want to get serious because I did email this pastor up in Goose Creek for the church that has decided not to renew their charter with the Boy Scouts. It's $40 a year. They've said we're not going to renew our charter. And he said this. I asked him to come on the program. He said, "Bryan, I am flattered by the invitation, but no thank you. I'm really mystified by how our church's decision got on anybody's radar screen. I can clarify a few things from the article, though." So before I use his clarification here, I want to tell you how you got on the radar screen. The liberal media is wanting to make an example of Christian intolerance. It's that simple. We are the intolerant ones, according to them. I'm not sure who empowered them to judge, because I'm not judging people because they are gay. I'm simply saying these are my values and this is what I think, and then you, my listener, gets to make the decision on what you think. But because I do that and I'm not willing to change my values, they then must call me names. They must neutralize me. They must sing things I can't understand on the telephone or whatever that was a moment ago. I don't know. But so here's what he said. The pastor of this church that has ended its relationship with the Boy Scouts of America says, "We did not kick out the Scouts. We told them they could stay until they found another place to meet. And if they had any boys who were on the verge of becoming an Eagle Scout, they could stay until that goal was accomplished. We're not upset with them in any way. We've always had a great relationship with the troop. Our concern is that with the direction of the national body, not the local troop. As I said to the newspaper, we weren't upset about the most recent BSA decision to allow openly gay boys into the troop. However, we were concerned that in a few years, they would allow actively gay individuals to become leaders. Our church made a decision to not allow practicing homosexuals to become elders," which are leaders in a Presbyterian church, by the way, "because we believe the Bible speaks against it. Since the position of eldership is one of leadership, we felt this extended to the Scouts as well. Our one last concern we had was the potential for liability if and when we refused to have a gay leader in the troop. It was our understanding that any potential lawsuit would be directed at the church, not the local Scout troop. Consequently, we made the decision, now rather than later, to part ways with the Boy Scouts of America. We do plan to build a Trail Life troop in the near future. Trail Life has a stronger Christian emphasis to its program. Thanks again for the offer and have a good show." So we appreciate the pastor of this church, this Presbyterian church up in Crowfield, Goose Creek, responding to us this morning and giving us, a canned response, but I understand. He's in a position now where he's agreed to do an interview with the Post and Courier. It's been reported. I get what he's talking about. He quoted the words "kick out." So now the church is kicking out the kids, the Boy Scouts, because of their decision at the national level. That's the story. That's the headline. Do you see how this story is developing live on your radio this morning and what's happening to the conversation? Probably what's a fine Presbyterian church of Christian values in Goose Creek and Crowfield is kicking out the Boy Scouts.
Yeah, according to the Post and Courier, kicking them out.
Yeah, according to the Post and Courier.
Instead of just letting their agreement expire.
Instead of, wait a minute, we have the President of the United States and the Department of Justice under Eric Holder saying, we're going to force into forward. We're going to create executive actions. Even Jim Clyburn in the 6th District here in South Carolina, your congressman, just said this past week, slavery was ended with an executive action, although that's wrong. We can end some of this civil rights violation on gay people with an executive action. They're talking about making it to the point that as a bank, this is the best description I can give you. As a bank, if a cross-dresser comes in and applies for a job with purple hair that looks like a man dressed like a woman and wants the teller job that meets the clients all day, they would have to get that job. Or else if you said no, then you'd be discriminating against them, not because they look like a freak and you didn't want them meeting your high-end banking clients, but because you're not being fair to everyone. And so,
and the right would be the ones that are intolerant and judgmental. Although the left is very intolerant and very judgmental themselves.
This church has done what the financial industry is doing to you and your finances right now. I don't know if you recognize the parallel. That's why I paused for a second. I'm just thinking about it because what's happening in the financial industry is that the banks are causing you pain and problems, and you can't get things done, and your boss can't give you a raise because they can't advance their business. They can't hire you because you don't have a job. They can't hire you because what's happened is with Dodd-Frank, they're afraid to lend money to anybody, which they need that capital in order to grow their business, so they can't give you the raise or the job depending on which side of the aisle you're on. And so what's happened is they're afraid, and they're just doing nothing. And so the market just kind of chugs along, and the economy just kind of chugs along, and you struggle. And then you move over here to the church, and they're looking at it from the faith-based perspective. We've got to maintain our values. That's all we have left. That's what's important to us. That's what we preach about on Sunday when you join us. And we're going to talk about what the Bible says, because that's the one book of principles and history that we follow. And then we're going to be forced to put someone whom we don't believe in their values into the church, and it's going to be called a civil rights violation because of their sexual orientation. And then we're going to get sued, and then we're going to have to go collect offering from our members at our church in order to fund a lawsuit to defend our basic faith. Do you see what is happening? And here's the good news. Now, don't be depressed. There's an organization that's developed that they're moving to called Trail Life that has the values, that isn't concerned about becoming larger by bringing in all of these different competing values and faith. No, we're moving to this because this is what we believe in. That's what we're going to do, because we're still in America, and we're going to take America back. And we're going to do it by taking the right action. So don't feel depressed about this. This is a good thing that's happened. And when you're doing a good thing, you're going to feel at the point of where the good stuff is coming, you're going to feel like you're being attacked at the highest, worst level ever. And that's how this pastor feels this morning, and that's probably why he wouldn't join me on the phone. So we talked about and I meant to get to this earlier, but so much to cover this morning. We talked about the Boy Scout troop yesterday, and I have new information, a new perspective I want to share with you. I don't just do a story and then leave it, because I think it's important to understand and kind of get a gut sense of these things. And real quick, if you've not been following it, there's a church, Peace Presbyterian Goose Creek. Pastor Will Dietrich has been interviewed by the Post and Courier, and they've decided to end a 10-year charter with the Boy Scouts of America effective this month, and move on and institute a new, more Christian-based, as they see it, boys, I think it's Trail Life is what it's called, or something of that nature, it's this church up in Crowfield. And they got kind of interviewed that they kicked out the Boy Scouts because of their decision started this year, the Boy Scouts of America saying we're going to accept gay troops. Their concern is not that, but their concern is that somehow they're going to move on to then gay leaders, and then it'll be a whole social conversation, and they don't believe in homosexuality from the church's teachings and from their biblical faith. So they are going to move in a different direction. And then that's framed a debate and conversation both on the air and off the air where several things have been pointed out. I did get an email from Todd who had a good question, I thought. It was thoughtful, and it was not I would assume Todd might be liberal. And he asked, so this still doesn't fully answer the question of what would Jesus do? Are they saying gay kids are okay until they reach the age of leadership and then they're not suitable? I'd like for them to explain biblically why they feel this way and then back it up with solid theology that has substance. I'm almost confident they have no real theological leadership. This is the same mentality religion used against people of color in the 1900s. I can see Jesus now saying, hey, my doors are open except to the gay folks who may have a position in leadership. Because we don't allow gay leadership, all gay leaders must be bad or something. I'm starting to realize there was no critical thinking here regardless of how long they say they discussed it. Now, I think that's a thoughtful question as to, well, within a church, how do they determine that, well, if you're gay and you're in a church, we don't want you in leadership? Because a church is a faith-based organization based upon beliefs. Okay, I don't know that was what was used in the debate with the civil rights movement, Joe. I don't remember reading that in history. I think that's an assumption that the church was against black people. If they were, I'm shocked. I've never been exposed, at least in my realm of faith and beliefs, that was a belief that should ever have been taken.
I know you could probably take some parts of the Bible and twist it around.
Well, I mean, and you could take some churches that did some things and there's places where maybe some KKK members, but I don't think that's a broad stroke of the brush, which makes the question relevant. But when you take that away, the question is really, well, how could you have, let's say that you had a prostitute. I'm not going to compare gay people to prostitutes. I'm just saying, what if there was a prostitute? Would you want the prostitute in leadership? What if there was someone who committed bank robbery? Would you want that person in? I mean, again, a church is a place of beliefs and faith, and the issue is, and I'm not comparing any one sin to the other or one's worse than I'm not doing that.
If they're formally part of those professions or part of those activities, that's one thing. An active person,
yeah, I mean,
probably not.
If that's the beliefs of the church in a free society, like them or not, then why can't they just believe that? Lowell put on there, too many churches today are willing to compromise God's truth to keep the people coming in the doors. That's not the way it's supposed to work. Melinda says, from the comments on our local news about this, you'd think a church's right to uphold the Bible is less important than the Boy Scouts' right to embrace the gay lifestyle. That's kind of where I'm coming from. Great point, Melinda. And then I have the question that we pick and choose as Christians and conservatives. We choose which parts of the Bible, like stoning kids to death or whatever. This is awful that this is being
just
compared.
like the left picks and chooses the parts of the Constitution